At exactly 17 minutes into a live broadcast, Jasmine Crockett did something no one expected. She named names. Not metaphors. Not vague accusations. Real names. Real money. And a connection so explosive, it made Karoline Leavitt, once called the sharpest tongue in conservative politics, freeze on live TV. The topic was supposed to be campaign finance. But when Jasmine leaned forward, looked straight into the camera, and said, "Let's talk about the money that flowed through Mar-a-Lago in 2022, everything stopped. The host lost his place. The control room fell silent. Viewers at home leaned in. Because in that moment, it wasn't about politics anymore. It was about truth and the cost of speaking it aloud. "You want to talk about campaign finance?" Jasmine Crockett said, her voice quiet but slicing through the studio like a scalpel. "Then let's talk about Mar-a-Lago." The words fell like thunder in a room built for polished jabs and political performance. But this wasn't performance. This was a rupture. Across from her, Karoline Leavitt blinked. Once, then again, mouth slightly parted as if she hadn't quite heard. But she had. So had the control room. So had the host, Barry Klein, who suddenly forgot the next line on his cue card. The audience at home didn't know what hit them yet, but they felt it. Something had shifted. Just 46 seconds into the live broadcast, the energy changed. Jasmine didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. The silence around her did the heavy lifting. It wasn't the silence of awkwardness. It was the kind that made producers reach for the commercial button. But no one moved. Karoline adjusted her blazer, trying to maintain composure. Her reputation was built on control, on having the comeback ready before the jab landed. But now her fingers searched for the cap of a pen she hadn't touched all morning. Her lips pressed together, but words wouldn't come. Jasmine leaned slightly forward. "You were at that gala, Karoline. You smiled next to the donors. But what you didn't mention is that $500,000, funneled through a shell company linked to a Beijing holding group, was wired 3 days before that night. You want receipts?" She tapped her black notebook without breaking eye contact. "I've got signatures." No camera angle could cut away fast enough. The studio was frozen in place. Barry Klein tried to salvage the moment. "Congresswoman Crockett, we weren't briefed on any of this." "You weren't supposed to be," she said flatly. It was the kind of exchange viewers didn't expect on a weekday morning segment. This wasn't about health care or budgets or border policy anymore. This was about something unspoken finally being dragged into daylight. And that was just the first 2 minutes. What no one knew, not the host, not the panel, not even Jasmine's own chief of staff, was that this wasn't spontaneous. It had been 3 sleepless nights in the making. 3 nights of poring over documents she hadn't asked for, delivered by a man who wouldn't give his name. 3 nights staring at a folder that pulsed like a bomb in her hands. She hadn't told anyone. Not because she didn't trust them, but because she didn't want them to talk her out of it. That was the thing about truth. It's not always dangerous because it's wrong. It's dangerous because it's undeniable. Because once it's said out loud, nobody can pretend they didn't hear it. So she waited. She planned. She showed up to that morning broadcast alone. No team, no talking points. Just her, a notebook, and the decision to end the silence. And when the moment came, she didn't flinch. She delivered it not as a weapon, but as a reckoning. And Karoline? For once, Karoline Leavitt, media-trained, soundbite slick, queen of the clean comeback, had nothing to say. Not because she didn't want to. Because she didn't know what Jasmine knew. And in live television, silence isn't just awkward. It's historic. 3 days before the broadcast, Jasmine Crockett had been the last person left in her congressional office. It was past 10 p.m. The hallway outside was silent, save for the low hum of a vending machine. Most of her team had gone home. But Jasmine remained, elbows on her desk, sleeves rolled up, eyes locked on a black folder that hadn't been there that morning. It wasn't delivered by courier. There had been no name, no sender address, just a man in a dark coat who handed it to her chief of staff with a soft warning. She'll know what to do with it. Inside, itemized transfers, corporate overlays, legal memos. Donations with no clear origin, masked under LLCs with generic names like Greenbridge Holdings and Sable Bay Consulting. Jasmine scanned line after line until one stuck. April 23, 2022, $475,000. Recipient, Mar-a-Lago Gala Fund. Host, Melania Trump. Accompanied by an internal authorization note. Signed by a mid-level Trump campaign advisor. Dated. Stamped. She leaned back, exhaling sharply. This wasn't a leak. It was a ledger. And if she was right, it wasn't just damning, it was designed to be found. That night, Jasmine didn't sleep. She didn't email the documents to her team. Didn't ask her comms director to verify sources. She knew the rules. Once something like this was passed through official hands, it would be reviewed, redacted, buried, or worse, used as leverage. She made a decision. She would carry it alone. Meanwhile, Karoline Leavitt was in Des Moines, preparing for a fundraiser. She stood in front of a mirror while her aide recited key lines. Democrats talk equity, but spend recklessly. Jasmine Crockett can't even manage her own district. It was sharp, polished, just the way Karoline liked it. But even she could feel the heat shifting. Rumors were swirling. Something was coming, and she hated the unknown. "Is Crockett prepping anything big?" she asked her assistant during the drive to the airport. "Nothing we've heard. Same talking points." Karoline smirked. She plays tough, but she folds under pressure. Thursday morning arrived fast. Sacramento was already warming under a cloudless sky. In the studio, Barry Klein was sipping his second coffee, reviewing the pre-interview notes. Nothing unusual, 2 guests, both firebrands, both media-savvy. A live segment on campaign finance reform, lightly combative, ratings-friendly. But Barry had a gut for tension. And something about the silence from Jasmine's team unnerved him. Karoline arrived first, trailed by her press manager and stylist. She wore confidence like armor. Firm handshake. Flashbulb smile. Jasmine arrived 10 minutes later, alone. No earrings. No powder touch-up. Just a worn notebook tucked under her arm and a look in her eyes that Barry hadn't seen in years. Not fear. Resolve. Backstage, the makeup artist offered touch-up. Jasmine declined. "No time," she said softly. But her fingers trembled slightly as she opened her notebook for the 10th time. The photo was still there, a handshake on a sunlit terrace at Mar-a-Lago. One of the men in the photo had ties to a shipping company flagged by Interpol. Another had been part of a lobbying firm quietly blacklisted by the EU. Barry stepped in. "You ready, Congresswoman?" Jasmine closed the notebook. "I'm not here to be ready," she said. "I'm here to be real." They walked together to the set. The floor manager counted down. 3, 2, 1. And the camera light went red. The moment the red light on the camera turned off, the studio didn't exhale. It held its breath. Barry Klein leaned back in his chair, looking like he'd just watched someone light a match in a fireworks warehouse. Karoline Leavitt didn't say a word. She unhooked her mic, slowly, deliberately, like any sudden movement might trigger aftershocks. Jasmine simply stood, nodded once to the crew, and walked off set without a word. She didn't check her phone. She didn't stop to chat. She stepped into the black sedan waiting outside and stared out the window the entire ride. Her notebook sat in her lap unopened, but it felt heavier than ever. By the time she reached her apartment, her name was everywhere. Cable news didn't lead with the budget, the border, or any of the week's talking points. They led with the moment. Crockett confronts Gala money trail. Is there fire behind the smoke? Clips of Karoline blinking, searching for words, were played on a loop. Jasmine's calm voice, "Then let's talk about Mar-a-Lago," was already a trending audio on TikTok. One post featured Karoline in grayscale with the caption, "When the homework is due and you didn't read the syllabus." But the memes weren't the story. The story was that for the first time, someone had said it out loud. Not behind closed doors. Not in a leaked memo. But on national television. Karoline's office released a short, clipped statement. Unsubstantiated, desperate, and inflammatory. It only added oxygen to the fire. Meanwhile, Jasmine sat quietly in her apartment, watching it unfold. Her phone buzzed relentlessly. Texts, voicemails, emails, some praising her, others warning her. A few even threatening her. But she didn't answer. Not yet. Kendra, her chief of staff, arrived with takeout and urgency. "You shook the floor, Jazz," she said, dropping noodles on the counter. "We need to control the fallout." Jasmine nodded, but she wasn't thinking about damage control. She was thinking about responsibility. The kind that doesn't go away once the camera cuts. The next morning, independent journalists began digging. They found traces of the companies Jasmine named. A few filings. A few questionable wire transfers. A blurry trail that suddenly didn't look so blurry anymore. By Friday evening, Reuters picked up the story. The Washington Post ran a cautious op-ed. CNN called the evidence thin but alarming. And the Ledger Wire, a lesser-known investigative site, published what would become the most damning report yet. Foreign influence at Mar-a-Lago, the gala nobody asked about. Karoline Leavitt didn't tweet. She didn't post on Instagram. She canceled a fundraiser and postponed 2 media appearances. Then, quietly, she held a closed-door meeting with her senior staff. No spin. No slogans. Just a stack of printed screenshots and a deep, exhausted sigh. I didn't know, she told them. But I defended it anyway. That's on me. The following week, she held a brief press conference. No crowd. No fanfare. She admitted what few politicians ever do. I should have asked more questions. I didn't. I will now. She didn't resign. She didn't explode. But something changed. In her next vote, she sided with a bipartisan bill increasing FEC transparency. Quietly. Without fanfare. As for Jasmine, she didn't take a victory lap. No Sunday shows. No viral merch drops. She went to a town hall in a small Texas district and spoke to 45 people in a community center with flickering lights. I didn't drop a bomb, she told them. I turned on the light. What we do with what we see, that's up to all of us. The room was quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't come from shock, but from people thinking deeply. Because that's what truth does. It doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just waits for someone brave enough to say it first.